Hey everybody, this is Brian Helming from Between the Licks, and here to give you guys another free guitar lesson. It's been a while since my last lesson, a couple months actually, just really busy. I'm glad to be back though. I'm really excited. I got 2 lessons coming up, and today we're going to talk about 5 rock solo tips. And these tips are basically aimed at like the beginner who's really interested in doing those guitar solos, but they find themselves kind of not really getting the feel just from playing like a pentatonic scale, which is really popular, especially to begin with and so. So here I have 5 tips, ideas that you can use to bring yourself up to the level that you want to. And it's going to take lots of practice, but here are some of the things that you should really be focused practicing on. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is accurate bending. And by accurate bending, I mean bending with a purpose. A lot of people think that bending is all about just grabbing a note and going up with it. And it's kind of how people get started with it because it takes a lot of finger strength to do it, especially if you have thicker strings. But you should be bending with a purpose. There should be a target to your bend. And then that's what you see, that half-step bend, full-step bend, that kind of stuff is always there for a reason, because you want to take that note you're starting on and bring it up a half step to the next note. That's your target. You want to go from that first step up to that next one. If it's a full step, you want to go up a whole 2 frets, and that's where you want to aim for. And there's only really one way to practice that, and that's by playing both notes and then going up. So let me give you an example. So let's say you're on the D, 10th fret of your E string, and you want to bend up to that E. What you need to do is get an idea of those 2 notes and then go. You want to bend all the way up. Bending like this. It's flat. You see how it's flat? You don't want to go too much. Too much. You want to get that right in the middle. So you want to go. You want to get right to that note and you want to stay there. You want to be really close. And it works for half steps. You don't want to go all the way up. You don't want to go past it. You want to go too far. And then the quarter bends, those little bitty ones, are usually just there for flourishes. There's no real target, but just a little bit. So that's the first tip. The next tip that I would give is using vibrato, practicing vibrato and getting a nice, strong, but smooth vibrato. It's hard to do. It's something that takes lots of practice. You can't really learn vibrato technique. You can only really play. And if you have a guitar, especially cheaper guitars, are harder to do it on because the guitar board's usually a little rougher, and when that happens, it can be a little stiffer. You'll jump. You won't get that smooth feel. But the idea is like it works well with bends as well. So you want to kind of bend. You want that little vibrato at the end, and there's really only one way to do that, and that's by lots and lots of practices. And if you want good examples of vibratos, look at David Gilmour. He's got great bend examples as well. You just need to listen to it. Find a style of vibrato that fits the style of music. So, anyways, the next thing I want to talk about are these little gimmicky things, which gimmicky kind of has like a negative connotation, but they work really great in context of the style. For example, pinch harmonics work great. LaGrange, Billy Gibbons plays an entire guitar solo using only pinch harmonics, and in that context, it works really great. It's a really cool solo. Another gimmick thing is like whammy bar or like feedback, and using that too much, it's kind of a gimmick. Here's the distortion. Sometimes doesn't do it, but in the right context, it can be. And just take a quick look at some of Jimi Hendrix's live stuff, and you can just realize how just amazingly proficient he was at using his whammy bar and letting feedback come back through and use it musically. So those are some examples, using those gimmicky things in the right spot. Don't overuse them. The next thing I would recommend is doing like scale runs or repeating licks, and those are just kind of like the opposite of the next tip I'm going to give you, is using these little things, these little licks, and then using those to build. Those are what those are for. Scale runs, repeating licks are for building. It's not for your solo. Your entire solo should not be a scale run. It should not be like a repeating lick just over and over again. It just doesn't work that way. But it is great to build up. For an example, like you have, say, you're playing something like in a C-sharp minor pentatonic. doing something like that, just kind of running up a scale, can give you a little bit of color that you want. A good example, Slash does that in his Sweet Child of Mine solo. Right when he kicks on the wah-wah, he runs up that scale and he builds up, builds up, builds up, and then all of a sudden you go to his next little part and he goes into some phrasing, which is my last tip, is phrasing. You want to think of your guitar as, you know, a musical instrument that's singing, you know, and sometimes that works really great if you kind of hum along or you kind of sing in your head what you want your guitar to sound like, and that will help with your phrasing so much, because when you have to stop to breathe, you should stop playing, and that helps with your phrasing. It makes it more natural and more organic, and that's kind of what that's looking for. That's the opposite of those scale runs and repeating licks, and it's not always one or the other. You can mix them up, and that's a good thing. Scale runs, repeating licks, build, and then phrases are kind of where the, you know, the beauty's at, and you can see that in a lot of guitar solos. Gilmour was a master of phrasing. That's why I comfortably know him as such an amazing guitar soloist, because his phrasing is so beautiful. So, using those 5 tips, going from bending, using accurate bending, using a strong, smooth vibrato, using little gimmicky things, but in a good way, in the right context, using scale runs, repeating licks, of course I mean maybe Freebird, they use a repeating lick so much, and it builds and it builds and it builds, but they're always changing it and always morphing it, so that's really cool. And then finally, using phrasing to give it a melodic, singable quality. So, there's 5 quick tips for you. Practice those a lot, and you'll see yourself improving remarkably. And really just pretty much no time, because using those, focusing on those, are 5 really big concepts. So anyways, thanks a bunch. Check out my other new lesson I got. Head over to the website. I got all these lessons all wrote out. Form, great resource. Head on over, say hi, drop in, post a track that you've recorded. We'd love to hear it. So, you have a great day.